Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Purvikacharya Sutara Santa Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Purvikacharya Sutara Santa Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Shri Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Yuga Dharma Hari Nam Sankirtan Yogya Ki Jai. Priyat Madanga Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai. Go Premanandi. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Jaya Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Jaya Radha Kala Chanji Radha Kala Chanji Radhe, Jaya Radha Kala Chanji Radha, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories. Okay. All glories to the assembled devotees. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today is Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024, and we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Text 12, and I am Jai Shri Radhe Devi Dasi. I'm going to start by saying some prayers to our spiritual teachers to give me guidance in giving this class. Oma Gyana Tibrandasya Jana Jana Shalakaya Chakshurumritam Jaina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who is established within this material world, the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasinubhyavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Vaishnav devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees and can fulfill the desires of everyone. And they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Pandit, Srivas Thakur, and all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I pray that Sri Sri Radha Kalachandji, Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Gurudev use me as an instrument so that their message can flow through me to give me the words to serve the Vaishnavas listening. So, as I said, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Creation, Chapter 8, Prayers by Queen Kunti, and Parikshit Saved, Text 12. Can y'all see the word? Okay. So, please repeat. Tari evate muni shrestha Pandava pancha sayakan Atmanopi mukhan diptan Alakshai satrani upadata. Please chant. Taryevata munishasta Taryeva munishasta Pandava panchasayakan Atmano bimukhandiptan Alakshastrani upadadu Taryeva munishasta Pandava panchasayakan Atmano bimukhandiptan Alakshastrani upadatu. Please repeat. Tarhi, then. Eva, also. Ata, therefore. Munishrestha, O chief amongst the Munis. Pandava, all the sons of Pandu. Pancha, 5. Sayakan, weapons. Atmana, own selves. Abhimukhan, towards. Diptan, glaring. Alakshya, seeing it. Astrani, weapons. Upadadu, took up. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O foremost among the great thinkers, Munis, Sanaka, seeing the glaring Brahmastra proceeding towards them, the Pandavas took up their 5 respective weapons. Purport. The Brahmastras are finer than the nuclear weapons. Ashwatthama discharged the Brahmastra simply to kill the Pandavas, namely the 5 brothers headed by Maharaj Yudhishthir, and their only grandson, who was lying within the womb of Uttara. Therefore, the Brahmastra, more effective and finer than the atomic weapons, was not as blind as the atomic weapons. When the atomic weapons are discharged, they do not discriminate between the target and others. Mainly, the atomic bombs do harm to the innocent because there is no control. The Brahmastra is not like that. It marks out the target and proceeds accordingly without harming the innocent. So we're in the midst of the chapter of Queen Kunti's prayers, and now we're talking about the weapon that was discharged to kill, her great grandson who was within the womb of Uttara. And I thought it was interesting that this is included in her prayers, right? Because we know of her prayers, she's giving thanks. She's grateful for all of the calamities that befall her, because they make her think of Krishna and really surrender to him. So here's yet another calamity that's befalling not just her, but her entire family and her family line. And what we're reading here is that the Pandavas, they take up arms and they're willing to defend themselves and their families against this massive nuclear threat. They're not just saying, oh, Krishna will protect us, we don't need to do anything. They're actually actively taking a part in their lives, right? They're doing what it takes to keep their family alive, to protect themselves. And then we can also think, like, what does this have to do with us today? Right? What is having, this weapon that's pretty much unheard of in today's society, right? Like, we think of a nuclear bomb, everything within like a 50-mile radius gets completely annihilated. Right, and that's like we're always on the brink of a nuclear war threat, like we currently are, at this day and age. I wasn't living at that time, but apparently in the 60s they would have these like nuclear bomb drills where like students would go under their desk as if that would save them, right? So this idea that we need to do things to protect ourselves has been there, since time memorial. But really, we want to make sure that we're doing both. We're doing things to protect ourselves, but we're understanding, realizing that it's our faith and our full conviction that Krishna will protect us that really does it. But at the same time, we're not just saying, okay, Krishna will protect us, right? Because in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, perform your duty, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. So we're going to take this concept of yoga and see what else Krishna says about it. He says, in continuing in Bhagavad Gita 250, he says, a person engaged in devotional service rids themselves of both good and bad reactions, even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. So he's saying here, we have to, this art of work, we have to engage in this in order to survive, in order to be, right? And even in order to be a devotee. Because oftentimes we have this idea that in order to be a devotee, we just do nothing and we let Krishna take care of everything. Who's seen someone or done that themselves in some places, in some other places, have felt like, no, I'm the only one that can do this, and we kind of lose our faith in Krishna in that moment. Not consciously, but maybe in some sense of like, if I don't do this, what will happen? And we get into thoughts of calamity. Yes, we've all been through that, right? I can think of many times, especially when it comes to like financial security. In that case, and that seems like a nuclear threat to my personal life, right? Like not having the finances to pay the rent, pay the bills, things like that, right? So it always comes down to, no matter what, like if I just do what I'm supposed to do and then have full faith that Krishna will protect me and take care of these things, it always happens. And I've shared this story before, and I'll share it again. It was a couple of years ago. It was actually on New Year's, around New Year's at that time. And I had this habit at that time of walking while doing my japa. And I would walk around the street. My neighbors would know. They constantly see me. They were constantly seeing me walk around the block. And I would have this, I kind of looked at it as a track. I would start from my house and go one way and then cross the street, across the street, and then come back. So it's like a circle around the block. And this one time, I was walking and I got to a corner and I saw a couple of pennies. So I picked them up, and it's like considered good luck. If you find a penny, you give it to someone else, and you both share the luck. So every time I would see, is the mic still working? Okay. Every time I would see a neighbor, I would hand them a penny. So this happened, and then I go back the second time around, and I see more pennies. And I was like, what? So this time, so I saw like actually 3 or 4 pennies, so I picked them up, and then I passed them out to all the neighbors that I saw. And then the third time I went around, I saw even more pennies. And like each time there were more pennies than there were the last time. And I was like really shocked, like where are these pennies coming from? And I swear, like the 4th time around, I looked and I made sure there were no more pennies. And still the 5th time around, there were still more pennies. To the point where I like had no more neighbors to pass them out. And I have them sitting right at my entrance on the table right there. I have like 50 pennies that I collected that day. And to me, it was this idea, like at that time, I think one of the things, and still constantly it always is like, how am I going to provide for myself? How am I going to take care of the finances that I need? And in that moment, Krishna was showing me that he will, just pennies, but it was like this representation of all the ways that he will take care of me as long as I'm willing and giving and of service to others, right? So I was giving these pennies away, and the more I gave, the more I received. And it was like this beautiful encounter. And yes, we can probably figure out that, somebody must have dropped a collection of pennies or something like that. But the way they appeared to me was mystical. It was just like a message from Krishna that, you just have to give and I will take care of everything else. You just do what you're good at doing, what your duty. Do your duty and detach yourself from the results and I will take care of everything. So it was really like this amazing interaction, right? And we always have these interactions and then maybe we keep it with us for a couple of days and then we forget about it and we go back about our lives, right? And so Krishna constantly has to remind us that no, he's the one actually taking care of us. We just have to do what we're doing. Because he says in Bhagavad Gita 3:4, not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. So this goes along with that. We have to the Pandavas had to pick up those weapons, even though they knew that Krishna was going to protect them. Krishna was going to take care of them, but they still had to do their duty. And then he goes on to say in Bhagavad Gita 3:5, everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities they have acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. So, and then he continues this concept of yoga when he's in 3:30, where he says, surrendering all of your works unto me with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, but with no claims to proprietorship and free from lethargy, fight. And then he says in 4:42, armed with yoga, stand and fight, right? So here we're talking about war, here we're talking about defending ourselves, but really it applies to all aspects of our lives. We stand and fight for, whatever it is that we need to do, whether it's not technically fighting if you're going to work, but it is providing for yourself. If you're making a meal, right, you're not just going to be like, here are the ingredients, Krishna, I expect that these things will become a meal. No, you actually make the effort to cut the vegetables and cook them, or so I'm told. And, then you make a nice meal, and on top of that, then we offer it to Krishna, saying, we're grateful for these things. Just as Mother Kunti is saying, she's grateful for the calamities. We also are grateful for not just the calamities, but also any blessings, which are actually the same, right? Calamities are blessings. So we can have this idea that we don't want to do anything, and maybe that's sometimes our own mind, that we feel like, I don't want to do anything, Krishna will take care of everything. But in actuality, Krishna says over and over, he instructs, and we see through these examples that, Krishna wants us to act. He wants us to do. There's a saying that God helps those that help themselves, right? And this is proof that we actually also have the same philosophy, that we have to act, and then Krishna will reciprocate. He'll provide for us. So I wanted to stop here and ask if anyone had any realizations that they wanted to share in terms of Krishna providing, or you're feeling like you didn't have full faith in him and he showed you a way, or, just times that you felt like you were struggling and Krishna helped you out. Here. The question is to share any realizations or ideas or things that have happened to you that have you like saying, oh yes, Krishna's actually taking care of me, or times where you struggled. So.
I always go back to the robbery incident on Radhakund Highway. It's not like there's, downtown Dallas where you can just run to Parkland or run to, Baylor or wherever, Really, you had to find that place to go. And Tulsi, the taxi driver, Tulsi Das, he was so definitely Shri Krishna empowered him because he found Mathura Hospital very quickly. Because it's actually very far away. And he drove very fast. And so that was Krishna. Definitely I had a reaction because of my sinful nature. I had to have a very strong reaction. Purification. But at the same time I see how Krishna, he minimized everything. The gunshot could have been in the face. I could have been blinded, or in the throat. I would have left my body. That would have been kind of cool. But anyway, the long story short is,
Thank you for sharing. I know I've heard that story before, and each time I'm always just taken aback of what you've went through, and also how Krishna completely protected you in that moment.
that was in '99. I'm sure it's increased to $8 by now, or 10. But amazing what the floor they did have. Super organized, great staff, great drugs. And very attentive. And I actually slept in the hospital. You don't usually sleep in a hospital. It was amazing.
Thank you. She went out to share that, I'm just going to repeat it for the audience listening online. She went on to share that even the hospital stay was just a blessing, because it was only $5 a day at $19.99, and the staff were amazing, and they really took such great care of her. So thank you for sharing. I think you would.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you
Hare
so
Krishna.
much for a wonderful class, and helping us to think that whatever we do, it's actually Krishna's giving us an opportunity to serve him. We don't just depend on him saying that, okay, here, everything's here, Krishna, please do it for me. So this is really nice. My realization is that there's so many realizations, but one thing I can share is that during on Ekadasi, deity worship at home, it's like I have so many distractions like you wouldn't believe. And I'm like, Krishna, how am I supposed to make your garlands, dress you up nicely, offer you some nice boga? How can I do this? There's people coming all the time like it's a business, because my husband has the office in the house, so somebody's constantly always coming. And I'm like, Krishna, how am I going to do this? And I also have to serve them. I cannot just do deity worship. I have to do other things as well. And I'm like, okay, Krishna, if you so desire that I give you nice offerings, please help me. I don't have the strength to do this. But he does. He helps me. Throughout the day, it's like, the whole day goes by, and it's like service after service after service. But when I say to him, Krishna, I just depend on you and your mercy, and he really helps me. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. That's just one little incident in day-to-day life.
Thank you for sharing. That's very nice. Does anyone else have something they want to share?
Hare Krishna, good morning. Thank you for a great class and helping us to be able to just apply the knowledge that's in the Bhagavatam in our daily lives. That's such a great way to start the day. And my financial dependence on the Lord, I literally just told one of my friends yesterday, is I feel through my experience it's been very easy for me to surrender almost every aspect of my life, even relationships, right? Finances and romances, those are the hardest things to release control of and attachment to. And even relationships, I've been able to just say Lord, you let me know who you want in my life and who you don't. But the financial thing, I always come back and find myself worrying, when I'm 40, am I going to have multiple streams of income to be able to provide for myself, and how am I going to make it? Am I going to always live paycheck to paycheck? But the first time I ever surrendered my entire career is when I left South Florida, where I had a lucrative auto detailing business, to join the student ashram in Gainesville. And I just knew, that
he wanted me to let that area go, living in that area, working in that area, even though it was so smooth. But it's not what he wanted me to do. And yeah, ever since I've lived at the ashram, like, my first customer is Kalakanta Das Prabhu
Very well.
at his beautiful farm property, you know. And then, like, right after that, some people have called me. So I just, yeah, no, letting go even of that part. If I look, just what you had said to summarize, if I look back at the track records of blessings, I'm going to see he's always going to provide no matter what, and he always has for me.
Yes, thank you for sharing. He does always provide. So he gives us this, especially when we look back, he gives us this confidence that we can be fearless, that he's going to protect us no matter what. And fearlessness is actually one of the qualities that we are striving for, right? It's a godly quality. It's said in Bhagavad Gita 16:1-3, fearlessness, and then a whole bunch of other qualities. These transcendental qualities belong to godly persons endowed with divine nature. And then Srila Prabhupada says in the purport of Bhagavad Gita 5:12, this is the secret of Krishna consciousness. Realization that there is no existence besides Krishna is the platform of peace and fearlessness. So again, we're getting this reiteration that we have to completely depend on Krishna for everything, for every aspect of our lives. Like you succinctly put it, romances and finances are the two major things that put us into anxiety. But even in those cases, if we just completely depend on Krishna, he'll take care of all of these things. So it's a fine balance. How do we realize this balance between Krishna's protection and working towards our own security? Anyone have any thoughts towards that you want to share? Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Yeah, I
Krishna.
was thinking about this before you asked your question, and then I was like, well, I don't want to say anything. And then when you asked the question, I said, okay, I'll say it. Yeah, I think it's, we're not supposed to see Krishna as an order supplier, right? So we're not supposed to be fruitive and think, well, I've done this service, so I'll get something in return. But at the same time, Krishna is not an ungrateful master, right? So he's going to take care of us. And I guess the example is like all the fishes in the ocean and all the large mammals on the land, they all get enough to eat every day, right? And so we should have faith that Krishna will always provide for us. But that, that's just a materially, but what do we want spiritually? We don't want to just, like you said, sit around and say, well, Krishna will take care of it. You may get enough to eat, but it might not be the nicest lifestyle, right? Whereas if you just do a little service for Krishna, suddenly you're with devotees, you have prasadam everywhere. I mean, since I joined Hare Krishna, I've never even experienced the tiniest bit of food insecurity, right? If anything, you have to not take so much, right? Because it's easy to overeat, and it's like, but I think that you're right. There is a fine line there that we have to keep ourselves understanding that it's not just that we're doing this to get something. I mean, we're doing it because we want love of Godhead, right? We want Krishna Prem. But that's a really noble thing. I mean, that's the highest thing you could aspire for. So, it's interesting, I think it's a day-to-day thing. We have to balance. And like you said, we have to keep doing things, not be lethargic, not be lazy, but do our sadhana and do our service and do our jobs as service to Krishna. And then, isn't it funny, has anybody experienced, you do the tiniest little thing and you start going, then it gets easier, and then you get this great result from Krishna, right? And it's from him because the devotee will, somebody will say, hey, will you help wash pots? Oh God, wash pots. I haven't done that since I was, a bhakta. But if you go help, or anything, you help a devotee because they ask you, and then maybe you miss dinner or you miss lunch. And then somebody will walk up to you with a plate of prasadam, literally, and say, hey, we just cooked this. It's extra. Do you want this? It's amazing. Hasn't that happened to everybody? We've all been experienced that.
Yeah.
Just this week, so much. Thank you. Wonderful class.
Thank you. Yeah, it made me think of just this weekend, right? One of my, I love the Kirtan 50 Festival, although these last couple of years it's just been overwhelming with so many people and it's so crowded, and as you get older it's not so comfortable to sit on the floor, especially when you have to like scrunch up sitting on the floor. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go no matter what on Sunday evening, New Year's Eve evening. But I really was like in anxiety of like, how am I going to sit? Like, how am I going to get comfortable? And, at first there was this thing of there was no place to sit. There was absolutely, like people were in the hallway. There was absolutely no place to sit. And we would do this thing where we'd go through the darshan line. You could stand there until somebody needs to go through, then you have to kind of walk back into a circle. And it was just kind of like every time you had to walk, it would break my meditation because I was like in the kirtan. And then slowly, like the space just opened up and all the devotees were like, no, come sit, right? It was like Krishna provided in that moment as well. It's like you get an anxiety and you forget that Krishna's taking care of everything. So it's just a recent example, right? Like even in amongst devotees, we can forget that Krishna's taking care of everything. And then devotees remind us. Because it wasn't like Krishna coming down and saying, hey, sit here. It was the devotees themselves that scooted even closer to make room for me, which I thought was just so like heartwarming and sweet. When it comes to our daily life and realizing this balance, it really comes down to our sadhana. What are we doing every day to realize that Krishna's our person? Krishna's got our back every single moment. That that we have this sweet eternal relationship with Krishna that's unique and personal for our own, right? And that's our sadhana. It's chanting the Mahamantra and mantra meditation, chanting japa, offering, our food and making it prasadam, and eating and honoring that prasadam, associating with devotees, coming to see the deities. All these things help remind us. And, since we're coming kind of close to the end of the class time, I will leave you with this. Like, we make New Year's resolutions. How many of you made resolutions this year? Yes. Do you want to share them? Or any of them? One of them? So, you said that you wanted to have Tulsi Puja at the Tulsi house. For the next Tulsi Shalagram Viva. Okay. Great.
Kind of more inspirational things. They're not really, they're sort of personal.
Okay.
But I wondered if I could, sorry to change the subject, would you read the quote you read last about Krishna's everything? Was that in the verse today or?
No, it wasn't in the verse. I think it's the purport of 512. Srila Prabhupada said, this is the secret of Krishna consciousness. Realization that there is no existence besides Krishna is the platform of peace and fearlessness. Is that the one?
Yes, that's the one. That's really amazing. I was in the temple room a long time ago, and I was chanting, and there's only one other devotee here. It was japa time, late in japa time, and so it was Sridhar Swami, His Holiness Sridhar Swami. And I had met him. I didn't know him very well, but he was a really far-out personality, right? He was large, and he was a sannyasi. He was in the Juhu project from the earliest days. And he was a preacher. He was raising money for Mayapur, and he was traveling around. But I was trying to chant my japa, and we do circles around Tulsi, right? So I circled around, and I went past Prabhupada, and I turned to look back at Prabhupada, and then Maharaj was over here, and he turned and he looked at me, and then he looked away, and then I looked away, and I got this feeling, it's like he sent it to me, cosmically, or ESP, or whatever, He sent me this message, and it said, there's nothing else in the three worlds besides the chanting of Hare Krishna. It was,
Beautiful.
and I know it was from him because I kind of looked at him and I was like, then I had the feeling, you know, and it was like, it wasn't like, it was just the words came to me. They weren't spoken, but it was really amazing. And I always attributed that to me being near him, whether it was from Prabhupada or Krishna, Super Soul, whatever. You know, I got that realization, and it's really true. There's nothing else in the three worlds besides Krishna. Krishna is the holy name, and you know everything comes from that. So, it's a wonderful quote.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, so when we bring it back to New Year's resolutions, if we think back, for those that didn't make resolutions, is there a reason why you didn't make a resolution? Okay, I'll just repeat it. Too caught up in everything, right? Haven't had time to think about it. Swept away in the kirtans, Kirtan 50.
I've kind of been, not so into New Year's resolutions. Gosh, it's going to sound like I'm bragging, but as I go along throughout my life, I'm pretty mindful of just day to day, week to week of what needs to change. So I don't really believe in the week before the new year you make a goal. Like as I go along, I go like, gosh, I should add more strength training to my weekly workouts, or gosh, I'm not chanting as good as I used to. Do I need to sit still more? Or do I need to walk more? So for me, I think having a big overarching theme isn't so helpful.
Thank you. Yes. One reason people don't make resolutions is that they haven't upheld the resolutions of previous years. And so they feel like, why make a resolution? And does anyone know like how long people keep their resolutions on New Year's?
I believe it's by the third week of January people quit.
Third day. Third day, people let go of the resolutions they had to improve themselves for the year. And that's because they try to do too much. They think, okay, all of a sudden on this magic day of January 1st, I'm going to get up early, chant all my rounds, offer everything to Krishna, you know, work out, get 8 hours of sleep. Like, it's just saying it. It's like already I'm feeling overwhelmed. Like, wow, no, there's no way I can do any of this. So by the third day, you haven't done any of it, and you think, no. But as Manjari Gopika shared with us, that really it's about being mindful throughout the year. Yes, this is the time of year that everyone is celebrating a new beginning. And so that's the energy of the entire globe, right? And so it's a good time to kind of restock and take, you know, kind of take note, inventory of what we have, what we don't have, where we want to be, and how to bridge that gap. But really it comes down to small steps. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Bhagavad Gita 6:25, he says, gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. But he doesn't say do it all at once. Don't pick a magic day. He doesn't say, like, pick a magic day and then all of a sudden you're going to become a complete, you know, bona fide yogi. He's like, do it step by step, but with full faith and conviction. Right, we have to have determination. We have to have full faith, and that this idea that Krishna is going to take care of everything. And so, you know, I always say we want to strive for progress, not perfection. So if we're chanting and we want to have more attentive rounds, maybe that's the first step, the thing that we focus on. I like to do monthly resolutions. So I say, like, this month, I'm going to focus on improving this aspect, one aspect only. And then the next month you do something else, and the next month. And at the end of 12 months, you've done like 12 small steps, right, that gradually will get you closer and closer to your goals. You know, and our goal is what? To become full-fledged devotees of Krishna, not just, you know, in name with our beads and our necklaces. I think I was listening to, or Devi Govinda Swami had said that at the end of our midnight kirtan. He said, you know, we don't want to just be like Kantimala devotees. We want to be true devotees in our hearts, and in our minds and our full beings. Like, we want to be completely surrendered to Krishna in every aspect of our lives. And, I know that I'm not at this particular moment, but that just sounds both overwhelming and totally blissful to me, to be completely surrendered to Krishna in every aspect of my life, right? And the idea is to tip the balance of blissfulness over the overwhelm, right? So each day I try to focus more on the bliss than the overwhelmingness of it, right? And so I'll just stop there, see if there's any questions or other thoughts or realizations that you want to share. Can we pass her the mic?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So this point that I hear in different lectures about gratitude, one should always be grateful for what they have. So I started doing this every morning, that before I start my japa, I'm like, Krishna, I'm so grateful. You arranged so many things for me to practice devotional service, and I'm not really conscious of it throughout the day. But when I start that in the morning, I see where he's helping me. And this has really helped me in my life. And even seeing no faults in anyone, especially family members, because you live with them and you see what they're doing. And it's like, okay, I did not see that. I think I need to pick out something nice that they're doing and just, magnify that instead. So that has helped me a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there's a saying, familiarity breeds contempt, right? And definitely it's what you're explaining. But gratitude is such a powerful defense against any of that, against fault finding, against that feeling of, we get kind of irritated by family members. I also keep a gratitude journal that I enter into, like, every morning. I write into it. And what I focus on is not just what I'm grateful for, but why, right? Like, Krishna, I'm grateful that I'm living in this community because, right? And kind of one step further of, like, really understanding, because we can name all these things. Oh, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, but then are we actually feeling it, right? So when we start to delve into why am I grateful for it, it really gets you thinking more about what is it actually that it's providing and how is it helping me progress and things like that. So thank you for sharing. Gratitude is such an amazing, I think it's like the solution to so many of our problems, right? If we just express gratitude. And that's why this chapter is so important. This is what Queen Kunti is teaching us, that gratitude, it's like even in these times of calamity, we've gone through some rough times. I mean, I think as a whole, like, entire global nation, like global world has been going through some difficult times these last few years. And I feel like if we just had more gratitude in the world, we would have less problems. So any other questions or thoughts? Final questions or thoughts?
Just one last. We definitely covered that we should take action in our lives, but I've just been reading several quotes lately that have led me to this, reiterating this theme of this one quote I recently read from His Holiness Giriraj Swami, where he was talking actually about Tamal Krishna Goswami and how Tamal Krishna Goswami had established such a deep internal sadhana, even though he was really well known for, being the lion guru and having a very big presence and being outside doing things in the Radha Damodar party. He had such a deep, quiet sadhana because he had such faith that by purely chanting japa, one develops all the qualities of a sadhu, all the compassion and all of the understanding and the patience. So anyway, which is the gratitude journal. I was just thinking about how really, if we come back to that one point of really, really, truly trying to chant purely, that like gratitude will manifest and compassion will manifest.
It's true. But sometimes it's really hard to chant purely and attentively, right? So we have all these other things that we can do to help us get there, and then when we get there, it helps us do all the other things. I remember listening to Giriraj Maharaj one time, and he was talking about that, and my question is like, how do you break into that cycle? Like, how do you get to the point of you're chanting so attentively and so with such a pure heart that you have all these things when you need all these things to chant attentively with a pure heart. So it's like you just have to find a way in, you know, whether it is entering at the chanting at the pure stage or entering from a gratitude level, or, you know, it's like get yourself into the cycle. It just makes me think of what Visesvara Swami always shares. It's like you have to have this desire to be a devotee, and if you don't have a desire to be a devotee, have the desire to have the desire to be a devotee. If you don't have that, then have the desire to have the desire to have the desire to be a devotee, and just get yourself somewhere in that ladder, you know, whatever, even if it's the bottom rung, get yourself in that ladder to have the desire to have the desire to have the desire to be a devotee. So it's the same thing. It's like we just have to find our way in. And it all depends on our nature, right? We have to act according to our nature. We can't not act according to our nature. So I'll end there. Thank you so much. Dharantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki.